Morning Grinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Tuesday, May 28th, and you can tell my allergies are acting up again. So throat's a little swollen, right? I've got a little bit of a cough, but don't worry. I got someone here with me to help me out. It's Taylor Smith. You've probably seen him on Crunch Time, Grinders Live, everywhere. He's probably already talked about the slate on the morning grind. He's probably already has 8 million answers for the expert survey. So obviously check him out later in the day. Find our premium content. Hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. Hit the subscribe button. I'm telling you to do all this stuff. Taylor's here early in the morning. They make you wake up early in order to deal with me. But this slate, we have today's MLB slate. We'll talk about it primarily on DraftKings. I don't know about you. I feel like this is a slate where it's kind of clear where you're probably going to go for stacks, but good luck figuring out which two are going to be the highest owned pitchers. We've been dealing a lot of slates where it's like, 40% owned pitcher that really probably shouldn't be 40% owned. They're not that good, to a slate where, I mean, you could legitimately make a case, I think, for half the pitchers on the slate.
Yeah, at least. It's kind of a play whoever you want slate, truly, on the pitching side.
So you're going to come in early and steal my lines?
Yeah. I know it plays in the RG Today streets, but yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure how the expensive pitching will be ownership-wise. Like Peralta and Wheeler. Wheeler has a good matchup on the road in San Francisco. Cole Reagans is someone that I'm generally under on because I guess projections haven't quite caught up to him totally yet. So I'm trying to boost him a bit to kind of get him into more lineups, but there is enough cheap stuff to where paying all the way up doesn't look like it's a complete necessity. But, there are plenty of viable paths tonight, so it does look like a pretty good tournament slate.
And some of the cheap pitchers are actually in very good matchups. I mean, for the price, I mean, like the expensive pitchers are in kind of worse matchups, but they're much better pitchers. And the cheaper pitchers are like they're worse pitchers, but they're much better matchups. But we also have to take a look at weather today. And Roth's initial weather report is out. Obviously, he's going to update you on Crunch Time. Taylor, you'll be joining him later tonight. Grinders Live's at 5 o'clock today. Obviously, hit that notification bell. You'll always know when we go live. But the only thing, I don't know if that's coming in on my end or your end, Taylor. Is there like low-flying planes on your end?
Yeah, let me see if I can close.
Yeah, he's gonna check it. I don't know. The lawnmower's outside or something. I don't know what's going on. It's like this is the locust. Is the first plague. You're earlier than me, so maybe like, do you know if the plagues are coming? Are the locusts coming? I'm waiting for the slag of the firstborn because I am the firstborn, and I want to at least get a heads up if the plagues are coming.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're not, but I will try to keep you updated. Is that better, by the way?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay.
It seems like the games on the slate. Let's see. I mean, the Boston game, that's not on. I mean, we have the stuff on the weather report for the games that are like 6:40 or earlier. So okay, so the Red Sox Orioles game isn't on the slate. The Cardinals Reds game isn't on the slate. The Pirates Tigers game isn't on the slate. So basically, the only game is the Blue Jays White Sox game, and of course, it's an important game because I think Toronto bats may get a decent amount of ownership, and I think Gausman against the White Sox. I mean, any pitcher against the White Sox is going to get ownership. So we'll have to like really, I mean, orange yellow. I mean, we saw the other day, or was it yesterday? With Ryan, where it was supposed to be a monsoon and then nothing happened, right? And he did very well. But I mean, I had Steele and I had Bassett anyway, so I got plenty of points at pitcher yesterday as it is. But then we also had David Schneider at 1,000,000% ownership that gets there on his last at bat in the 9th inning, and that I never like when that happens, right?
Happens
but I think
frequently.
But I think this game is going to be owned. So when we're going through, we have to act as if there's some amount of risk there, because we saw Joe Ryan, who was projected originally to be close to 50% owned, only turn out to be like 18% owned. So maybe this Gausman number may not be as high ownership-wise, and maybe the Blue Jays won't be as high ownership-wise. But we'll find out. I mean, we're still like 8 hours away from lock. We'll see from there. So on the high, okay, let's talk about 2 levels of pitching. On the high, if we consider Gausman to be a high-end pitcher, right? $8,500 or above. Are all of them in play? I mean, is everyone? I mean, I would consider Gausman, Fried, Castillo, Reagans, Wheeler, and Cortez. I mean, technically Cortez is in play against the Angels, but I mean, I'm not sure if I'm playing 5 lineups today, then I'm playing Cortez. But I mean, you could even make a case at 10 or lower % ownership of even playing Cortez. Is there anyone in this range, $8,500 or above, that I'm not saying X out, but would come close to like not considering?
I think it would be Cortez. LA is not a very high strikeout lineup. It's kind of a hitter-friendly park and all that. I think the top tier is crowded enough to where if you want to make a cut, he's probably the first one I would make. After that, I guess it would be Castillo, just because, if you don't want to pick on Houston on this slate, then why would you? Not a very high strikeout lineup either. Obviously, plenty of power there. But he is, 9.2 on DK is not high for him historically. So he is coming at a relative discount, especially compared to the 3 guys over 10K. But yeah, Cortez and Castillo would be the ones that I would first be looking to kind of get away from.
Another question is that would you consider double barreling expensive pitcher given the state of the offensive stacks on this slate? Because me in the past, I was big vomit stack, double barrel, 10K plus pitchers, because the only way you could do it is by playing some cheap stack. I don't think that's the meta in 2024 anymore, because pitching is the 10. I mean, you look at the 10K pitchers, it's like, oh, they're good pitchers, but they're not like automatically give me 30 plus points types of pitchers. Do you think, I know this is related to the hitting, do you think that there's a viable cheap stack or enough value on the slate where you'd play a Wheeler Peralta lineup, or even be able to, truthfully, even a Wheeler Gausman lineup? I mean, you're saving another like 2,000 there, but still, you're not going to be able to pay up and get like, oh, I'm going to pay up and get all the Braves, right? You're not going to be able to do that with any of the like 10K plus level pitchers. But do you see yourself building any lineups that have like double 10K plus pitchers? I mean, I'm looking at my first look is I'm not sure if there's any stacks or value that I'm really looking to play that would allow me to do that.
Yeah, the only one is, if you want to go for the direct leverage thing and play against Gausman with the White Sox or something like that, I think that's fine if his ownership's going to be out of control, like if the weather's not an issue or anything like that. But kind of looking at it, I don't really see anything on the cheap end that stands out. I guess the Jays are not expensive compared to where they've been over the years, but that's going to result in significant ownership. So you're not getting them at any kind of sneaky ownership discount today, weather pending. So, yeah, I don't really think this is a double barrel slate. Obviously, you can do that and just hope that whatever vomit stack you cobble together goes off. But, Miami against Matt Waldron, if Matt Waldron's going to be popular, I think that's okay. But Miami is probably the least comfortable stack every single day. It's not bad, though. I don't think that's a terrible way to go either. But, yeah, there's not a lot that stands out on the cheap side, honestly, for hitting.
So pitching-wise, as of right now, knowing that this is in relation, whenever we talk about buckets or lists or tiers or anything, we always want to adjust for ownership, right? So, like, it's not just like, oh, the highest raw projected pitcher is X, and they're on the top bucket. The top projected stack is this, they're in the top bucket. Well, I mean, if they're going to be 1,000,000% owned, they're going to have to come down, right? And a team that is going to be like no percent owned, that has any type of chance, like, can't be on the bottom, right? So, like, it has to be ownership adjusted. So, if you were playing somewhere between 5 and 20 lineups, right? Or even if you're making just one lineup, 3 buckets of pitchers, doesn't matter the price, right? Compared to ownership, what would you consider on this slate to be like the A bucket? Like the pitchers that you are the most comfortable with in building a lineup?
I think on this slate, Hunter Brown is going to be in the A bucket for me, just because he's super cheap. Seattle, we've been picking on all season, just a crazy high strikeout lineup. Good park too for him tonight. 6,500 is just really cheap. I know he hasn't been good, and Seattle has some power, of course, but all things considered, the way he looks at that price, it's hard to get away from for me. He'd be in the A bucket. I think I would put Gausman there too, just because it's the White Sox, and we did see him kind of come around in the last game a little bit. He's another guy that's been kind of underwhelming all season, but for the dollar and in the matchup, I think he is probably A bucket material. I guess you could put Max Fried there, just because he's under 9K and facing Washington on the road. That didn't go well for Charlie Morton yesterday, but Max Fried's better than Charlie Morton at this stage of their respective careers, and I think the price is right on him.
I think the ownership is right on him also. I'm not sure, especially if the weather in Chicago is fine, that people are more inclined to play Gausman. I mean, at 8,800, I mean, I'm typically over on Max Fried almost every one of his starts anyway, because people have this notion that he's like a low, like, oh, he's a contact pitcher. It's like no, he can strike. He could strike out people a bunch, and they could. I mean, he could be efficient enough where he could go. I mean, he could legitimately pitch a complete game in under 100 pitches. So, like, the ceiling of those two things combined, like, as long as he's not in like the worst matchup and he's under 10K, and if he's going to be like, we have his ownership at 11%, like, to me, I consider that a gift.
Yeah, I think he belongs in the A bucket. Washington's also a really high ground ball lineup, so like you said, he should get through some easy innings, and he should get you there for the dollar. I think he's totally fine. That might be it for the A bucket, although I guess you could throw Cole Reagans in there if he is going to be. We have him at 9% right now, which is significantly less than Wheeler and Peralta among the top 3. Yeah, I think he could go there too as a tournament play, just because we've seen the upside consistently. And Minnesota is kind of a boom-bust matchup. Strikeouts haven't really been there, but I think he's good enough to warrant consideration on the high end.
Right. I think normally I would put him in the second bucket, but ownership bumps him up to the first bucket, because I think Peralta and Wheeler would be higher owned in that same exact price range. And the projection difference isn't dramatic enough that those two pitchers should be 3 to 5 times more owned than Reagans.
Yeah, I don't
so
really
second
understand
bucket,
that.
I'm gonna take these guys out. Second B bucket. So these are pitchers that they're not your top options, but you'd still be plenty happy having a bunch of them in a bunch of your lineups.
Yeah, I think Waldron, just because he's 6'2" and facing Miami, gets into this bucket. He's going to be popular, it looks like, which is uncomfortable, but it's just a price thing. And Hunter Brown's also going to be popular, I think. But, I don't think Waldron's an awful play at that super
would
cheap
you be
salary.
playing Taylor? Would you play Waldron Brown lineups? Like
I
two
would,
cheap
yeah.
pitchers and then just spend up on everything and too expensive?
Yeah, I'm concerned that your Yankee stacks and your Brave stacks are going to be Waldron Brown lineups for the most part, but Galspin's cheap enough to where I don't think that'll be a mega popular construction either. So yeah, I would still do that for sure. Not very comfortable, but I think it makes sense on this slate.
So would you put Peralta and Wheeler at the top end, at least in the B bucket?
Yeah, I would, just because they project so well. Wheeler at 11K is a bit rich, but he's been excellent consistently for a long time. Peralta, same thing. Not an easy matchup necessarily against the Cubs, but he's been about as good as anybody else in the whole league this season. So they're definitely in the B bucket. I think I'd put Castillo there too, just because he is cheaper than those two. Tougher matchup, like we said earlier, but 9-2, I think he is reasonable for him.
And also he'll also be like a third of the ownership of the other guys as well.
Right. I think that might be the end of the B bucket. I don't really see anyone else that kind of belongs in that tier, probably.
Okay. So C bucket would be they're in one lineup, take a shot. You never know. It could go really badly or really good. They're low owned, like these are the flyers. These are not the people like if they don't make the C bucket, like they're not even making any of your lineups, right? So like
right.
Like we're getting people that are just like pure flyers in that C bucket.
Yeah, I think Mike Clevenger for 5K flat would be in this bucket for me, especially if the Jays are going to be really popular against him. Just kind of, cheapest guy on the slate, I think. Take a shot on that. He's not like a gas can historically. He's been fine for a long time. So I don't think he's a terrible option. Brandon Pfaadt, under 8K against the Rangers. I think he looks decent enough despite the tough matchup. And there was one more. Oh, Jesus Luzardo, also under 8K. He's probably underpriced for who he is. Low strikeout spot against San Diego, but getting a discount on him. So if he's going to be relatively low owned, I think he's a decent flyer as well.
So you wouldn't take a shot on like Dane Dunning against the Diamondbacks, Canning against the Yankees. Even Cortez at 9,500. You don't have. I mean, would you consider at least Cortez to be like in the C bucket only because his projection's high enough? It's just that he's probably not worth that money, but he's not someone that you would just X out of your pool completely.
Yeah, he's definitely playable. He doesn't project poorly. He just doesn't project as well as most of the others in that tier, but projections aren't everything. So yeah, he's
but the rest of these playable. Guys you don't want any part of.
I guess you can make a case for McKenzie just because it's the Rockies, but it is Coors and he's been injured. So I don't think you need to go that deep. There are plenty of options on the slate to where that seems a little bit thin to me.
Right, because a lot of times when I do the buckets, there may only be 6 pitchers in all of the buckets combined. And right now we're at 12. So like if you can't make lineups with the 12 pitchers we've already said, like maybe you don't need any of these pitchers. And also, I'm not sure what the upside, like, what is any of these pitchers going to be at their pitch counts, like the one that you need? They're so low owned.
I don't think so.
Sure,
like Ben Brown's been limited, Canning against the Yankees. I just don't see the point in getting there. I guess Dunning, but he's been pretty splitsy over the years, and I think Arizona's kind of lefty heavy to begin with. So I don't know. It seems a bit thin on this slate. I think you can make do with the 12 other guys we've already brought up.
Right, 12 of the what? Yeah, that's more than half the pitchers on the slate. Right?
Yeah, you're good on pitching, I think.
Right. And also when we get into hitting, one of those pitchers that maybe 20+% owned may actually get shelled. I mean, that's why you're looking at stacks. Let's go to that with the tiers. I love the tiers. So as of right now, this is as of what 11:20 in the morning. Because remember, we only have projected lineups, projected ownership, right? But we're just taking a first look. We got how many teams on the slate? We got a whole bunch. Let's go down the list. Let's start. I mean, I'm going by the bat projection, so it's gotta because I don't want to go in complete order. Let's go in the order of like the games because that's what the Dean does on Grinders Live. So the Dodgers and the Mets.
I don't think that's on the slate. I think it's a doubleheader.
Okay, you're right. That's kind of weird that the 7:10 game isn't on the slate. Okay.
Yeah.
7:20 game. Okay, so we have the Nationals and the Braves. Okay, so where would you put the Nationals? And where? Yeah, let me go. I have so many screens. Let's go in the order that I wanted to go into. Okay, I'm going to go by basically point per dollar value in the bat projections. So where would you put the White Sox against Gausman? Because I would automatically not make them in the F tier because of leverage.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking C maybe. I do think they're playable because Gausman's going to be pretty popular, and it's not like they were awful at the beginning, but they've kind of come around a little bit. They're not terrible. Ballpark is pretty good too. So I'd put him C. I think that's reasonable today.
Well, I'm going to bump him down only because at least like for the rain risk.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not good.
Just like
it's not a good stat, but yeah.
Right. But I mean, it's hard for me to imagine me telling people like the Sox are, and then they get rained out. Like there's some rain risk there because I would automatically put them at least D. Definitely not B. Right, because they don't. It's not like they project well.
No.
But I don't know. I'm gonna make the executive decision in between everything. How about Miami? Similar type of situation against Waldron.
Yeah, I'd put them. They don't have a weather issue as far as I know. So C or D. I think I'd put the White Sox slightly ahead of them, but I am more interested in the Marlins than I would like to be.
Okay. How about the Blue Jays? Assuming that that game, obviously, you have to factor in the rain risk, but also some of their batters may actually be quite decently owned.
Yeah. And it's the Blue Jays. Like, they've been pretty underwhelming for years, and it seems like they're going to be chalk. So I think I'd put them B. Like, they project well, but if they're going to be super popular, it's not a team that I'm really comfortable being over the field on. I think you can make a case for B or C. I think B's fair enough for them.
I'm putting them in C because of the rain, right? You got to move them down just a little bit. You have to factor in that rain risk.
Yeah.
And they project well for their price, but I think they're not. I think compared to their ownership, there are going to be other teams that we're going to get into soon that are going to spread out the ownership enough that I don't think you necessarily need the Blue Jays. I don't want to play double-digit owned Blue Jays today. I didn't want to do it yesterday either, right? I played Springer, so that worked out, right? But I mean, Schneider at that ownership was just disgusting with the 9th inning home run. The Angels against Cortez. Cortez is not really going to be owned at all, so you don't get any direct leverage. Where would you put the Angels?
You could make a case for F tier for them, I think, just because no leverage, not a good offense. I don't really see them making it into my lineups. Right?
They're cheap.
Yeah, but I think I'd rather play Miami or the White Sox. I'm going cheap just because of the leverage angle.
Okay. I can deal with
Not
that.
really into them.
Okay. Now we're getting into some better teams. The Atlanta Braves against Jake Irvin. No Acuna, obviously, but they got Murphy back. They got Riley back. The Braves are still a good hitting team, even without Acuna. Where the Braves go. I don't think the Braves are going to be the highest owned stack on the slate. I don't think they're going to be unowned. But I don't think the ownership is going to get nuts on the Braves, outside of maybe Sean Murphy.
Yeah, they do have a high total. I don't think they're going to be very popular at all. They are getting some tag action in lineup HQ, I see, but you can make a case for A tier for them just because of the ownership and the upside. It's still a good lineup, like you said. Decent mix of cheap and expensive hitters now with no Acuna. It's a little more affordable overall. Irvin's not a guy we have to avoid. So I think A is pretty intriguing.
Then we get to what I believe is going to be the top stack on the slate. And that's the Yankees against Griffin Canning. It's the highest raw projection in the bat. And I mean, they're back. They're back, baby. Right? They've gotten people back. They're healthy. They got some cheap. They got like some cheap bats in the bottom of the order. Where are you putting the Yankees on this tier list?
Do you think it's going to be a situation where they're like mega chalk? Because it is a pretty big slate with a lot of deep, like it's Coors. Like there's plenty of alternatives. The ownership projections don't look wildly high right now. I want to put them A because they do seem like a really good option. If it's going to be prohibitively prohibitive,
I don't think that I think
Yeah.
Coors will. I think Coors will limit the Yankees' ownership, but I think the Yankees will be higher owned than the Braves. I think the Yankees will be one of the top 3 owned stacks on the slate, but not something where it's them and then a big gap. So they'll be up there. I think that and like the Guardians, like up. The Braves will be like underneath that a bit. So I don't mind if you want to put them on the A tier. I think they're not going to be owned enough that I would even put them in the B tier. And also their ceiling is so high as a team that fine, you're playing if you want to play a 20% on Aaron Judge, maybe it is worth it.
I think I could be talked into A for them. There are plenty of ways to get different in your Yankee stack. If you want to pair them with Marlins or Angels or White Sox or someone like that.
But Taylor, we also got a million pitchers that we could play that maybe 10% owned. Like, I mean, like it almost feels like if you played a lineup with like Reagans and Fried, or I mean, obviously probably not playing for Yankee stack, but let's say it's like Waldron, Reagan, like they're like 10% owned pitchers that I almost think that there's enough pitching that even if you played the Yankees with like a 5-2-1 with like a one-off guy that's like 3% owned and then like a 7% owned pitcher, like what's wrong with that? You're fine.
Yeah, and they're not like Verdugo and Trevino. It's not like everyone's 6K either, so it is pretty easy to stack them and still have some money to pay for pitching.
Okay, how about the Diamondbacks against Dunning?
I put them in the B. I don't think it's a bad spot. He's not an ace by any means. Pretty good offense overall. Should be putting the ball in play. Like I said, Dunning's kind of splitsy. Arizona's a little more righty heavy than I thought, but I think it's a solid spot. I put him in B. They're not going to be very popular either, I wouldn't think.
No, not in comparison to the Yankees or Coors. Talking about Coors, the Rockies against McKenzie.
I think I'd also put them B. They have a pretty high total for the Rockies. Obviously, a lot of ways that can go wrong. It's just a really bad team to begin with, but the total's pushing 5. Coors Field. The other side's going to be the more popular offense there, I think. They're a little bit pricey on aggregate, which is not ideal, but good enough spot, big enough slate. I think I would get to them today.
Yeah, I would put the Rockies in the B tier. I put them on the A tier yesterday because people don't play the Rockies enough. And, you know, they are a bad team, but at home against bad pitching at a fair enough price on a slate, I always think they should be higher on than they are. How about the other side of the game, the Guardians against Feltner?
I think just because we put the Braves and Yankees in A, we probably should put them too. They will be popular. It's Coors. It's not a great offense either, but high contact lineup. Feltner is not bad by Rocky pitcher standards, but the slate's big enough to where they shouldn't be overwhelmingly like mega chalk, I don't think. But I would hear a case to move them down to B if you do think they will be too popular for who they are.
Yeah, I'll put them down. I also think once we get to start getting to the bottom, you'll see that Like, this slate is more of like a haves and have-nots. Like, we got to put people at the top somewhere. Like, these are the clear stacks, and then there's going to be stacks where it's clearly not, right? So,
Yeah.
let's how about the Royals against Woods Richardson?
I think they're pretty firm. They're borderline AB also. He's one of the worst pitchers on the slate. It's a good offense overall. I don't think they're going to be very popular either relative to the other. Like, they're not the Yankees or the Braves or the Guardians. They're kind of popping a little bit for me. Their total's pretty low, which seems weird. I'm seeing 3.89, which is odd. I would have them above that. Ownership could push them into A if they're going to be mega contrarian compared to the other top stacks.
Right. My natural inclination was to put them in C and then move them up to B because of ownership. So if you're fine with that, I'm fine with that. Because I mean, I it's hard for me to put a team that has, no matter if we disagree with it or not, that has a team total under 4 and just say, yeah, they're an A tier, like with all these teams that are getting 5+, right? That's why it's like raw point wise, like I don't know that, or at least ceiling. I think probably their median projection makes them up here, but maybe they don't have as much of the ceiling as cores of the Diamondbacks, the Braves, or the Yankees. And since we're playing GPPs, we have to kind of consider ceilings. How about ultra leverage? Seattle Mariners against Hunter Brown.
Yeah, I think they're probably C tier, just because Brown he's been quite vulnerable, a little home run prone. It is an offense with power, like you said earlier, even though they strike out a ton. Yeah, I think C is fair for them. I would be getting to them probably in front of the White Sox and the Marlins, but just because it's a better team overall. So I think C is adequate for them. Also,
they're facing a worse pitcher. I mean, Hunter Brown could look. I mean, if Hunter Brown was 9,500 on this slate, he wouldn't be like, he would barely be owned. Like, he's 6,500. Hunter Brown looks good at times. Seattle is one of the highest strikeout matchups in the league, but Hunter Brown could also just fall up. I mean, like he could totally.
We've seen it a time or two already.
Right. How about the Texas Rangers against Brandon Pfaadt?
D, probably. I think they're just better than F just because of their talent, but kind of expensive. I don't mind Pfaadt as a pitching option. I think he was in our C tier as kind of a flyer at low ownership. So you're not getting leverage with them there. I think there's obviously well behind the top stacks on the slate in terms of matchup. Not really getting to them a lot.
Similar spot. The Padres against Luzardo.
Yeah, it's like the exact same thing. I would say the talent alone puts them in D above F. But I'm not eager to pick on Luzardo either. Like you said, he's not going to be very popular, Luzardo. So no leverage, not much of anything, not a good park. Kind of one of the colder games on the slate too. So not the greatest spot for offense in the San Diego today.
How about the Giants against Wheeler?
I think they're a D, even though there's, Wheeler should be popular, but it's also bad offense. I guess you could make a case for F, but Wheeler's ownership bumps them to D for me. Not a team I'd be getting to outside of like an MME situation. Certainly not single entry, I don't think. D seems fair for them too.
Okay, I was surprised you didn't just automatically go to the F.
Yeah, well, I think it's just Wheeler being popular.
They're in the back of the second worst projected team on the slate.
Who's worse?
We'll get to them.
Milwaukee?
No, not even close. No.
Interesting.
So you're fine with putting the Giants. You think that Wheeler's going to be owned enough that the Giants get moved up from the F to the D tier?
That's what it looks like. He's around 30% in the ownership.
If I told you, like Taylor, if I told you Wheeler was 18% owned, would that move the Giants back then?
Yeah, I think it would.
Okay. Because I get the sense that Wheeler's not going to be 30%. Maybe not 18, but maybe in like the low 20s.
Yeah, I just refreshed and he's already down to 23, so he's getting steamed down a little bit.
Okay. The Nationals against Max Fried. My natural
That's
inclination is to put him on the F tier.
yeah, I agree. I don't think he's going to be that popular. It's not a great lineup. I like Fried quite a bit, so F.
Okay. Here's an expensive team that may be from their median projection overpriced, but their ceiling is obviously there. The Phillies against Spencer Howard.
I think like the park sucks, obviously, and they're pricey, but I think C is fine for them just because Howard is one of the worst pitchers on the slate, if not the worst. Great offense, of course, top to bottom. The upside's there, and the total is decently high for San Francisco. So C is adequate for them.
Okay. We got a couple left. Here is the lowest projected team on the slate. The Minnesota Twins against Cole Ravens. And they beat out the Giants by like legitimately 0.07. So it's like it's not that dramatically worse than the Giants. Are the Twins F tier only because Reagan's is not going to be owned enough that it would bump them up to D?
Yeah, I think they're F. Plus, they always have pinch hit risk with some of these righties. So, yeah, there's like you said, not a ton of leverage here. Not a good offense. Not a good spot. Nothing good about it. Firm F.
The Cubs against Peralta.
Borderline DF, like they're better than Minnesota, but also a bad spot. I could see them being an F, but I'll say D for Peralta. I don't know. Like, do you think he'll be more owned than Wheeler because he's a bit cheaper?
I think he'll be a little bit more owned. And also, if you had to tell me one of these pitchers gives up 3 home runs, it's much more likely to be Peralta than Wheeler, right? Like Peralta could strike out 8 guys and still get 4 or 5 earned runs against him, right, for power. And I think the Cubs at least have people in the lineup that they can hit the ball out of the park, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't suspect that to happen. But if someone would have told me that they played a lineup and they played 1 Cub in their lineup, they played like a Morel or someone, and like even though it's against Peralta, like I'm fine with that. Would I play 5 Cubs against? Probably not, but like that makes it so that I don't mind putting them on the D tier. Like when you're talking about F tier teams, these are teams where like if I played 20 lineups, they wouldn't even be one-offs in lineups. Like they wouldn't even make none of their players would make any of my hitting slots.
I think that probably pushes the Angels up. Going back to them, pushes them up to D. Like I think a mini stack of them is okay, just because there is some righty power in there. But I don't think I'd be fully stacking them with Cortez not being that popular to begin with. But
Okay.
Yeah, the rest of them are just full fades for me.
Right. Okay, we got 2 more. The Brewers against Ben Brown.
Hard F. Ben Brown, not terrible. I'm just not really getting there. He's not going to be popular. They don't have a very high total. It looks like just over 4. Yeah, just a crowded slate, and I don't really see myself getting to a lot of the Brewers today.
Last team, obviously a high ceiling, but they're the worst point per dollar projected team on the slate. They're not the worst projected team just by point per dollar, and that's the Astros against Luis Castillo.
Probably another D, like Texas and San Diego. Like the talent pushes them above F. But I don't think Castillo is going to be mega popular. He's not really a guy that gets blown up a ton. He's been a bit vulnerable to lefties, so a dusting of Tucker Alvarez makes sense. But full stacking them looks a bit thin outside of a 150 type situation.
So, like I said, this tiers list looks like haves and have-nots. Like if I'm playing 5 lineups today. Like I'm pretty much sticking to like the A's and B's, probably just Xing out the D's and the F's, right? If I have like a one-off Brave, a one-off Blue Jay, or one-off Philly type of thing, like, and that seems like we're concluding that like the off-the-board team with the low team total that we are willing to take a shot on is the Royals.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's a weather thing. Like it looks like it's around 60 there. So maybe it's just a bit cold, but Woods Richardson's not someone that's super imposing, and it is a pretty talented lineup. So if the ownership's right, I think they're pretty interesting tonight.
And given if the ownership was similar, you'd rather play the Yankees over the Braves, or you?
I would. I think it's a higher ceiling lineup, better park, better spot. Yeah, I like them a lot more.
And if ownership was equal between the Braves, the Yankees, and Coors, either Coors teams, would you still choose the Yankees?
I would, yeah. Just the ceiling from that lineup is pretty incredible, as we've seen often, especially of late. Canning is prone to blow up as well, kind of a reverse split from the right side, so that plays into the hands of Judge and Volpe and Stanton and all them. So all things considered, everything equal, I would put the Yankees ahead of everyone else.
And then the top leverage stack based on our tiers would be the Mariners against Hunter Brown.
Yeah, just because his ownership's going to be outsized for who he's been. And, you know, we've seen power from them too on occasion if they can make contact, which is a big if. Yeah, I think the leverage opportunity is pretty self-explanatory for them.
And based on our tiers, the potentially over-owned team stack is the Blue Jays.
Yeah, good spot, good park. But Blue Jays, we've seen them flatline quite often, and they're going to be the highest owned stack. Then coming in under the field is a pretty easy call.
Okay. Well, this is kind of like our little new format for the show in the morning. Talk about pitchers, put them in buckets. Talk about stacks, put them in tiers. So these are our tiers as of right now. I mean, you tell me Judge, Stanton, Soto, you tell me all those guys are sitting today. Obviously, the Yankees aren't going to be in the top stack, right? You tell me that half the games are rained out, and obviously this is going to change. So obviously, sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. Get all of our projections, all of our ownership, all of our premium content. Cheese's $1 Million Musings. He writes like 10,000 words every day about the MLB slate. So click on that link in the description. We're running a deal right now. 6 months of combo premium. You get all the sports. $250 off. Or if you want to just try it out for a month, take $40 off that first month. So click on the link in the description. Hit that like button if you enjoy the tiers. Of course, it's not like Grinders Live. I'm not making the favorite movies or the holidays or whatever. That we'll save that for when they have to spend an hour and 15 minutes talking about a 4-game slate, and you have to fill time somehow. This show, we don't have a necessarily time frame. This show could be a half an hour if it wants to be. So Taylor, you're going to be on Crunch Time later today, right?
I am indeed. With Keith, I think. Keith and Ross.
Way to keep up with your schedule, Taylor. Right? Maybe I'm
going to be there.
Maybe I think I'm there. Right? So
the
5 o'clock
Eastern.
Yes, 5 o'clock Eastern. Grinders Live, followed right after that 6:20ish Crunch Time. Roth will be on to share all the updates, especially about that Toronto White Sox game for the weather. So tune in then. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Do all that stuff. I'll be on tomorrow. It won't be RotoGrinders today. We have another early slate, so I'll be on with Dean. With maybe I'll think of what the tiers should be for tomorrow, and Dean will probably come up with some trivia question that still he doesn't understand how to organize the clues in a row so that someone doesn't get it on their first shot on the first clue. But that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. We also remember on Friday. UFC pay-per-view is on Saturday, so on Friday we'll be covering MMA. Squirrel won't be on, but TJ will be on. But we will be talking about MMA stuff on Friday. Thursday, normal baseball. Tomorrow, obviously, Grinders Live. So thank you, Taylor, for coming on Tay Bojangles on Twitter for the rare times that you do tweet.
Yeah, quite rare, but every now and then I'll chime in with nonsense, of course.
Did you at least tweet yesterday celebrating Angel Hernandez's retirement?
I did see that. I should have. It is a landmark day for us all that he's finally gone.
I think it's the first time ever in the 15 years I've been on Twitter that everyone in my timeline agreed with something. There was no sniping back and forth or you're stupid or whatever. It's just like once that news came out, it's just like
pure harmony.
Yes, right. Pure. Everyone. It's like a celebration. No one's having any issues with one another whatsoever. And I don't have issues with you guys out there for hitting that like button and joining me back in tomorrow. Or I'm here typically, even if it's this show or Grinders Live at 11 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday, talking about all things you're thinking about. Daily fantasy props and pick on RotoGrinders Today.